All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to do a little bit of training over home inspections, and we're going to do it for a different reason than what you think. So we know that when we're out in the public, we do get a lot of questions asked from all of us, and rather than just say, call the Bureau, you know, there are some very simple answers to a lot of the questions that are being asked out there, so we thought we'd kind of do a quick review over home inspections, kind of give you an idea of what we talk about out of the Bureau, whether it's myself, Inspector Doolin, or Scott Henry, our public educator. All of our answers should be fairly much the same answer. So you'll see it's very basic. And again, these are answers that we should all be able to tell the public when they come up and ask us these simple questions about safety in our home. So, so we actually do home inspections. One of the things that is required is a diagram on how to get out of your home. And these are a lot of the practices that we should be doing as well. So it should be practice what we preach. So there should be a diagram of your home, especially if you have kids, explaining the multiple ways out of every room in your house. So it doesn't matter if they're in their bedroom, there should be 2 ways out. It doesn't matter if you're in the living room, there should be 2 ways out. If you're down in your basement, how are you getting out? So all of these things that we need to be aware of, and we take it for granted sometimes. So what we try to do is to get them to draw a footprint of their house and explain the various ways out. So, of course, your main entrance, your front door, your back door, are typical your main entries in and out of the house. But you also have to think about your windows. Windows are designed for the specific purpose of escaping out if need be. So if you ever look into your fire code or your building code, you will find that windows are required to be 44 inches, no higher than 44 inches off the ground, 5.7 square feet in size, and that is for the purpose of trying to escape. And that should be in every room of our house, except for the basement may be a little bit different if you're not sleeping in a basement. But if somebody ends up putting a bedroom in the basement, they would have to put in an escape window meeting those criteria.
Is it only a bedroom? Like if they have a media room in the basement?
Doesn't matter. It's for sleeping areas. The building code is very specific.
So as long as there's not a bed in there, it's...
As long as there's not a bed in there, you can have a day room down there, you can have a man room down there, you can have whatever you want to call it, a kid's room. That can all be downstairs, but the moment you put a bed down there and now it becomes a sleeping area, now you're required to have an escape window. And that is likely to change in the next code cycle. So right now they are examining the idea of allowing you to have a bedroom downstairs in the basement as long as you put in a limited sprinkler system. And that's limited area, under 20 heads that can come off of your domestic water line. So they're looking into that now to see if that's going to be a feasible option. And that next code cycle should be 2022.
It might be a cheaper option than putting in a escape window.
Right, correct.
I think the escape window, one of the guys here put one in, I think it was about $7,000.
Yeah, it is not cheap to put one in. So so if you go to look at that, and that's probably one of the reasons why they are looking at that. What most people don't know is the Home Builders Association has a huge lobby which has a huge influence on the Ohio fire and building codes. So that's how some of these things get passed, because they're looking at strictly the cost and the easiness of actually installing some of this. So that's where you will find when they went to solid wood joist to now these particle board joist, that was because of the Home Builders Association. It's cheaper. Well, they're gonna still charge you the same, but for them, it's cheaper. And to go ahead and go a limited area sprinkler system down in the basement versus having to put in windows will be cheaper, but they're probably gonna still charge the same. But those are changes brought on by the Home Builders Association. And they're very hard to try to work with. So we also need to understand and try to realize that once we are outside, if we find ourselves in the circumstances of having to leave the home, once we're outside, where do we go? Do we have a meeting place in mind? Are we going to the neighbor's house? Whose neighbor's house? We're going to the big tree in their front yard? Where are we going? So we kind of talk with some of the people when we're out there, and we start thinking to ourselves, you want to have a meeting place where everybody can gather. You want to practice your plan so everybody in the family can practice going to that meeting place, but you want to stay away from where your hydrants are at, and you want to stay away from directly inside of your, where your home is at, because that's where we're going to be. You know, when the fire department rolls up with the lights and sirens and the engine and everything, we want all that space for ourselves. We don't want to have to respond to your home trying to help you out or try to put out a fire, and then all of a sudden we hit you. You know, because what they found out is that the red lights and sirens actually attract kids, so kids tend to run towards them, not paying attention to the fact that we're still rolling in, trying to set up how we're going to fight the fire or how we're going to medically help somebody. So we try to get them to stay away from the front of the house, stay away from the hydrants. And we also try to express that once you are at a meeting place, you stay there. So if you have a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 kids, mom and dad and 2 kids all need to realize that once they get there, they stay there. So if mom and the 2 kids make it out, no one goes back in to look for dad. We don't need that, because then what happens when they go back in to look for dad, we're going to find 2 people laying on the floor rather than just the one. And it has happened several times where several years ago we had a husband and wife. One went out the front, one went out the back. Both went around the house in the same direction, didn't see each other, went back in, and they found husband laying in the back, husband laying in the front. They went back in to try to save each other, and the smoke overtook them. So once you're out, you're out. Stay at the meeting place. And we should be able to practice these drills on a routine basis. We try to express to the parents that when the kids go to school or they're put into a daycare, they practice this monthly. So if they can practice it monthly at school and daycare, why can we not practice it at home? And we should be practicing this. Then we talk about kitchen safety. We ask them, do they have a fire extinguisher near the cooking area? So as long as they know where it's at, that's what's important. What's also important is that if you're going to leave grandma, grandpa, a babysitter behind to watch the kids, they need to know where the fire extinguisher's at. So if they're going to make popcorn or if they're going to make some kind of snack that revolves around the stove, they may need it, so it'd be nice for them to know where it's at. Make sure that the handles of the pots and pans are facing inward, that none of the small kids can come up there, pull down on the handle, next thing you know they're being covered in boiling water or oil or anything else that's going to harm them. You should get into the habit that when you're getting ready to cook, whether you use it or not, you should have the lid to that pot nearby, or you can use a cookie sheet, anything that's going to help knock down those flames in case it were to catch on fire. So, and then if that does happen, you want to take that cookie sheet or that lid, place it on top of the fire, and then try to turn off the stove if you can, because we're trying to take away the heat and the oxygen at the same time. This right here is the, and they also have another one that's a blue and white can. This is a type of extinguisher that is actually meant for the cooking area. It actually is for your oils and fats, what we would call Class K fires or Class K extinguisher, what we see in the cooking restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to create a foam blanket just like that. So you stand back a little bit, spray some foam in the direction of the fire. If you have to, you can always stretch your hand out or take a step forward to make sure you hit the fire, and then let that foam blanket do what it's supposed to do and actually put that out. The great thing about this type of extinguisher near the cooking area is that what you see is what you clean up. If you get into an ABC extinguisher, you'll be cleaning that up for days, if not weeks, because it's powder and it's going to go everywhere in that home. Just some of the different types of extinguishers you can see for the kitchen. It actually says that it's made for the kitchen. That is the 1A 10BC. So, as we have walked through some of the businesses, we have seen a 1A 10BC in some of the businesses. Those are not meant for businesses. So those should never be in our businesses. So everything that should be in a business should be 2A 10BC or larger. The 1As are designed to be for like home kitchens or your car. That's what those are for, something small and manageable. And again, you want to make sure that you stay back a little bit, point it at the fire, and as you're squeezing, go left to right, and if need be, you can lean forward or step forward and put the fire out. You don't want to be right on it. And this is what we're telling the owners. We don't want to be right on the fire, because if you do, and that pressure comes out, you're going to push that fire onto the cabinetry behind it. Because you're too close and that pressure is just going to sit there and splatter that oil all over the place. So stand back a little bit before you actually use it. These right here are actually canisters that you can buy at Home Depot. They actually are magnetic and they go right above your stove. And they have a heat link on the bottom of it, so that way if the fire does flash up, it'll burn that link and separate it and actually dump that out. So they're Chevy Chase down here on South Main Street. They actually have something very similar to this above all of their stoves. And it actually, if you look up underneath it, it looks like a aluminum pie pan that just adheres to the bottom of the hood. There you go, thank you. And that way, when it gets too hot, it burns that link and actually just falls down and it puts the fire out. So we've responded there a few times where that has actually happened and they work out great.
Did you have like a demo of one of those at some point?
We did a long time ago, yeah. Those are hard to reuse. And then we do a general inspection of the home. We try to tell our residents that they should have a smoke detector on each level of the home and a smoke detector in each bedroom. The smoke detector should be replaced every 10 years. And the CO detector should be installed if you have gas appliances such as your stove, your water heater, your furnace, and or if your garage is attached to the home. So if your garage is attached to the home, that should be a 1-hour wall and a 20-minute door between the garage and the house. You want to make sure that your CO detector is somewhere in that first room off of the garage. And then we get into, we actually do have this brochure here, that if you don't know the difference between ionization, photoelectric, and where to put them, and COs, we can always give them brochures. We try to tell them the importance of having a combination, which will be smoke and carbon monoxide, and it can be an ionization or a photoelectric and carbon monoxide, or it can be a dual sensor, which is both ionization and photoelectric. Whichever fire starts first, it will actually set that off. So the code right now tries to express a combination of these two somewhere throughout the house. Starting next May, that entire code is going to change. And then we'll have training next year about that. This right here is a nest. It is a carbon monoxide and photoelectric. Great thing about that, it's also has voice command to it. So you could actually, it will tell you that it's getting ready to go off. It's going to give you fair warning that it's starting to detect something. If you're not around, it will actually buzz your phone and let you know that something's going on in the house. So as a matter of fact, a Nest system saved a guy's house recently where his phone was buzzing, his smoke detector went off, his cameras went off, couldn't find out that there was a small fire that had started, and he was actually able to call 911 and get the fire department there before it actually did too much damage to the house. So there are all different types out there. It's just a matter of how much money and how elaborate you want to be. If you look close at this is a combination. It's has your little P emblem for photoelectric and your I for ionization. So that would be a good one to have. Here's your ionization and your CO detector. And this one right here, does anybody know what this is for?
People you can't hear.
Very good. So this right here, the way this is designed is you will get a smoke detector that goes for your bedroom, and then the red pad actually goes underneath your pillow. So that way, if the smoke detector goes off, it starts vibrating that pad, and that should wake you up. Now we actually have two of these in the office, and it's pretty interesting how that works. So you can also get detectors that actually have a horn strobe to it as well. Something that's going to either sound really loud or will actually create a flashing. So if you're deaf and you're awake, it'll actually, you'll see the strobe go off. And then as we try to talk to our homeowners, especially during the holiday seasons, we get into the use of extension cords, power strips, and surge protectors. We generally take a walk of the home if we're called out there. Like we can be called out just for anybody who wants the peace of mind, we'll go out there and inspect. Somebody who's going to adopt, we'll go out there and inspect and fill out the paperwork. Somebody who's going to be a foster parent. You know, there's a number of reasons why we might go out there, but we'll take a general walk through the house. Look at how the extension cords are ran, or the power strips, surge protectors. Are they ran under the carpet? Are they ran under any kind of furniture that's actually pinching those wires, and over time it's going to break those wires inside? Are they chained together? And we try to really hit this. Do we sleep with our doors open or closed? How many here do we sleep with them open, or how many sleep with the doors open? Okay, we should all be sleeping with our doors closed. Okay, the best way to explain that is that when you go to bed at night, you're going to bed to rest. So all of your senses are trying to rest as well, and they tend to dull down. If you're asleep, your vision's shot, your hearing diminishes, and your sense of taste and smell and everything else kind of wind down. So, and when a fire starts, when it first starts, it starts to ride those airwaves before it starts to rise into the ceiling level, and you'll start to breathe in that smoke, and you'll just never wake up. But if you sleep with your door closed, and you have your smoke detector on each level of the home, and you have one in each bedroom, then what will happen is the smoke stays in the hallway, the alarm goes off, hopefully you or somebody in the house hears the alarm goes off, then they can investigate. If you don't hear it, if you ever look at your bedroom door, it's not solid all the way around. There are, usually some cracks or crevices around the edge where smoke seeps in. It'll seep into your room, hit that smoke detector near your door, set off that alarm, and because it's closer to you, you should be able to hear that. That should wake you up, and you should still have plenty of time and plenty of fresh air to be able to figure out what's going on and figure out how to get everybody out of the house. So that's why you sleep with the door closed, to keep that smoke and everything outside. So here you go to the office area, you see that cord is actually underneath that plastic. And all that's going to do is it's going to smash that cord and start breaking those wires down. And eventually it's going to start fire, because as long as that cord's plugged in, that electric's still being pumped out there. Are we chaining them together? Are we plugging more things into a strip than what should be there? So there are certain things that we know should not be plugged into a power strip, such as your refrigerator, your microwave, your washers, your dryers. Anything that is a large appliance should not be plugged into a power strip. And if that power strip holds 6 different things, and you plug in another power strip that holds 6 different things, you're really asking that one power strip to be able to pull power for 12 different things. Can't do that either. And when we do see this, so normally if you look right in the middle, you'll see the 3 outlet adapter put in there. We tend to pull more of those out, melted down, than anything else. Those are UL approved for the home, but when we start overloading them, they melt down actually pretty quick. And that's usually about the holiday time. Trying to figure out why that photo's in there. So this is another thing you'll find that people tend to do, is they will go ahead and remove the outlet cover. And then they'll buy an adapter like this, plug it in, screw it in. And we have to decide, is that legal, is it not legal? And as long as it is has a breaker or a fuse in it, they can do that. So that way it'll try to shut itself off. That one does, you can tell by the lights that are up there at the top. Try to make sure that they are UL approved. Right now, China's pumping out literally hundreds of thousands of these. None of them are UL approved. And yet, they're sold at Lowe's, they're sold at Home Depot. And then we get into the egress doors. Sliding glass doors are not considered egress doors because they may require special knowledge to open. So I know a lot of people actually have sliding glass doors in the back, but what do you do about preventing people from breaking in? So you'll find people who put bars at the bottom in the track so they can't be opened. You'll find people who actually drill holes and put their own little latches at the top and bottom. And that's all considered special knowledge. And the building code does not recognize double glass doors as a means of egress. And we need to take a look as we're walking around at the locks, the latches, hardware. Does it take a key to unlock the door to get out of your house? Or any other kind of special knowledge? So that is not advised as far as having a key on the inside. Because some people leave them in the locks at all times. But what if you decide you're going out and you forget to take the key with you? Are you locked in? Is somebody inside locked in now? Kids. babysitter who doesn't know where the key's at? Did we come home last night? I'm checking all my doors, make sure they're all locked, and just out of habit, put the key in my pocket, go upstairs to bed. Now all of a sudden something happens, and I don't know where the key's at 2 o'clock in the morning when my house is on fire and I'm trying to get out. You know, so it's just not a good practice, and it's ill-advised. And is there any other kind of special knowledge that we need to be able to get out? Do I need to know a code? I mean, is there any kind of extra locks, extra latches? You know, if you have kids, are they going to be able to work that? I mean, I know there comes a time where, you know, we're trying to be safe with our kids, but where is it that we are too safe with the kids, where now if something were to happen, it's more detrimental than it is beneficial? You know, or even the citizens. I know some adults can't even work some of the child latches because they've never seen them. And when, you know, if you've got grandma, grandpa coming over to babysit, do they know how to work all these latches to get out? And they're going to remember that under stressful conditions of trying to escape. And then we try to go into the bedrooms, or think about your bedrooms. Are we blocking our bedroom windows with our dressers or our beds or anything else in the room? Because keep in mind, those windows are your second means of escape. So if I need to get out of my bedroom in a hurry and I can't go out the main door, am I strong enough to move the dresser out of the way? You know, are there decorations that are actually hindering my ability to get out? You know, these are the things we need to look at and actually try to realize even in our own homes. Blocked by the beds. What about putting a baby crib or a toddler bed under a window? You know, how dangerous can that be? You know, what happens if we have to break in and actually try to save that child? Are we going to break a window and all that glass go right into the crib where they're at? Or right over the bed where they're at? So you never place a bed or a crib under a window. You know, there's also that chance that they could get tangled in the cords that are hanging down. Next thing you know, they hung themselves. Make sure you don't put any shelving above the beds in case small earthquakes or somebody's banging on the wall and items were to fall into the crib or the bed. And then we get into the basement bedrooms. So if somebody tries to have a bedroom in the basement, keep in mind they need 2 ways out. So the minimum is going to be your window opening. As we talked about, it has to be at least 44 inches off no more than 44 inches off the ground, finished floor, 5.7 square feet in diameter and dimensions. So you get that idea. Or if you have a walkout basement. If you have a walkout basement, there's your second means. Now if you do the window well, now you got to figure out how deep is that window, and do I need a window well with stairs put into it? Or can we put in a window well and actually keep a ladder nearby where they can actually use it? So they actually do make the window wells with the stairs in them, and you can install those yourself. It takes a little bit of time, but you can actually do that yourself. So when we get into trying to escape out of your bedrooms, we try to tell people, when you get to the door, use the back of your hand, you know, to touch the door. If it's hot, then you know there's something fairly close outside. If it's not, you move your hand over to the door handle. Feel the back of the door handle with your hand because it's metal, it's going to absorb that heat more. And you'll get a truer reading as to what's on the other side. If you can touch the handle and open it, stay low, slightly open the door and try to figure out what's going on in the hallway and then go investigate the fire. If you can't do that, then you know the fire is right outside the window. Now you need to think about how we're getting out of the room and how we're gonna get everybody else out of the house. When you get up onto the second floor, do we have a ladder for the window where we can actually just throw it right over the windowsill and then climb down? And if so, have we tested it? So the proper way to test that ladder would be to install it, deploy it, and then go outside and try climbing up the ladder. Never try to climb down the ladder from a second floor when you're testing it. Yeah, that's a good way to like break your leg and fall and all that kind of good stuff. And the reason for that, I think I have it down here. And the reason for that is because the weakest part of the house are your windowsills. So if you try to put that ladder over these windowsills and it grabs that windowsill, is that windowsill going to hold your weight? Is it going to hold 200 pounds? And if you try climbing out the top and work your way down, you're going to find out real quick if it's going to hold or not. That's why you climb up. So if you climb up, at least you're only a couple of steps up if that were to give. So you want to check that before you attempt to try it out, and you want to check it after. Did it come loose? Did it break loose? How are we going to reinforce that to make sure it's going to hold the weight of all of us? There we are using the back of our hands. Going over to the doorknob. Start thinking about, is it too hot for me, or can we actually start looking out in the hallway to see what's actually causing the detectors to go off? If it's too hot, put a blanket at the bottom of the door. Try to prevent some of that extra smoke and gas from entering. And then we got to think about if we're able to climb out the window. If on the first floor, pop right out the window and go to your meeting place. On the second floor, you have to think about if you have a ladder. This right here is a one-time use ladder. It's exactly what it is, one time. You get one shot at it. But they also make ones, we have one in our office, where instead of the red straps, it's actually chain link. And that's a multiple use. Multiple use are definitely the better way to go. But I would caution you if you have teenagers, because to them that is their way to get out at night. And like I said, you need to practice. Read the instructions. Practice on how it's to be used before you actually have the emergency. When you have the emergency, it's too late. And then now we go into the steps of how to test your ladder. Everything we just talked about. Make sure you read directions and then try to set it up and go from there. So what do we do if we can't exit the room? What if we're on the second floor, we feel the door's too hot, the handle's too hot, can't make it out the room, and we're afraid to go out the window? Well, now we need to think about how are we going to let people know that we're here. One, most of us sleep with our phones, so we're going to call 911 on our phone and say, hey, I'm here, whatever. This is our address, come, fire, stuck on the second floor.
Is that written right?
Yeah. Of course not. I got to do that. And we're going to put a blanket over the windowsill. We need to identify that we're actually in that room. Okay, because one of the things that we're going to do is a 360 around the house, right? Just like we do with every building. We're going to arrive. Somebody's going to try to do a 360. And if we see a blanket hanging out the window, we should be thinking to ourselves, somebody's in that room. We need to think about rescue operations before we think about suppression. Correct? And practice practice, practice, practice. So we need to make sure we practice our fire drills on a regular basis. Like I said, if our kids do it in daycares and schools on a monthly basis, there's no reason why we can't do it at home on a regular basis. So these are just simple things that we should all know. We should all be able to give the same answer no matter who asks us. And any questions? And then you can also think about tornado drills. Where are we going for tornadoes? If you have a basement, should be a basement underneath the stairs. Small room, try to go into small rooms. We get into other safety features that we're looking at for kids. If you have small kids, how are we covering up the outlet covers? You know, the one on the left is the one you see most common, the little plastic ones all over everywhere. The one on the right, a little bit more expensive, but you basically put your quarter in there, slide it over, and it plugs right in. Kids can't figure that out. Some adults can't figure that out. Door locking mechanisms, something that could actually be an adult can figure out, but something that the kids can't figure out, so they can't run out the front door and be playing in the street, you know, without you knowing about it. Or if you have a pool in the back, that they just aren't able to open up the doors, next thing you know, they're laying in the pool somewhere and you had no idea they were out there. And that's happened. So, and then these are actually for cabinets. You'll see those around. You want to make sure that if they're dealing with chemicals are put up high or locked up in a cabinet somehow that the kids can't get into. How we locking up, again, those right there, that's just an easy remedy right there, and you can actually use that on the refrigerators, stoves, your microwaves, anything just to prevent kids from using them and getting into them, because they will try to mimic what we do. They may not be putting food in that microwave, but maybe something metal. You know, so if you can make it non-accessible, good way to go. What are we doing about the stairs or any other place that we want to keep kids from? Are we using gates, and are we putting gates at the right location? Are we putting them at the top of the stairs, bottom of the stairs? These are things that you guys need to figure out, because location could be a big difference. Right now, you get that child right there. What happens if he's just a few pounds heavier and starts knocking that over? Is he going to go sliding down that stairs? And then other safety features those are actually made out of foam on the right, where you can actually put those on your harder edges, so when the kids hit themselves, they don't start gouging their heads and running into them, because they're not really paying attention and they don't really understand depth and height and all that kind of stuff at that age when they're young. They create knobs for your stove so they can't get up there and play with turning them on, because they see mom and dad cooking. All I know is I play with these knobs and I accidentally turn on the stoves. So they do make knob covers for those. And on the right hand side, what you're actually looking at is windows can come with a way to lock those windows in place where they only raise up maybe a couple of inches to let air in, and not all the way up to where a kid can fall through the screen and then next thing you know they're outside. Did they hurt themselves? Is it from the second story? A lot of that time you'll see that kind of stuff in hotels as well. They're just not even openable. So several options.